If you're a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility and your machinery isn't working right, Grainger knows you need to understand what's wrong as soon as possible. So when a conveyor motor falters, Grainger offers diagnostic tools like calibration kits and multimeters to help you identify and fix the problem. With Grainger, you can be confident you have everything you need to keep your facility running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Kulturecast. I'm Chris Stachiw and I'm joined by two good friends of mine. They both have their own podcast. Here's the funny thing though. It's up to me to determine which one of them gets to say Rosebud first because they're both going to try to say it, maybe. So I'm going to go... never mind. On that note, I am joined by my good friend, the host of the Projection Booth podcast, which is currently up for a Webby in honorum. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's not up for any awards.
Well, it should be, and it's a goddamn shame that it isn't. My good friend, Mr. Mike White.
I'll give you 5 if you're not alive, if you don't know his name. I don't know.
You could have just said Rosebud.
You already said Rosebud.
That's fair, but you didn't do it in the... I didn't do it in the Rosebud. And as always, my good friend, Mr. Mark Begley of the Wake Up Heavy podcast.
We will sell no wine before it's time.
Oh, boy.
There's your fucking Rosebud.
That's my favorite line, the final line of the movie. Throw it all in the trash. Oh, boy. And if you can't tell, on this episode of the Kulturecast, we're going to be tackling a film that is, up until today, I guess, was one of the 100% films on Rotten Tomatoes. It is no longer, thanks one person...
An 80-year-old review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're doing that now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a thing we have to worry about now, isn't it?
I think that was Pauline Kael jumped in a time machine, went back, wrote the review, and then contacted someone in this era and said, hey, there's a review from 80 years ago that trashes Kane.
It talks of this. You mean I went to see this movie and there was no Kane in it? That's
it's
all.
The Kane from Citizen Kane.
That is only thing I had any reference for Citizen Kane before watching it was the joke from The Simpsons. And Lisa goes, hey, yeah, the Kane from Citizen Kane. So yeah, we're talking about 1941's greatest film of all time, Citizen Kane.
Lights! Give me a mic.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? This is Orson Welles. I'm speaking for the Mercury Theater, and what follows is supposed to advertise our first motion picture. Citizen Kane is the title, and we hope it can correctly be called a coming attraction. It's certainly coming to this theater, and I think our Mercury actors make it an attraction. I'd like you to meet them. Speaking of attractions, well, the chorus girls are certainly an attraction. But frankly, ladies and gentlemen, we're just showing you the chorus girls for purposes of ballyhoo. It's pretty nice ballyhoo. But here's some of our real Mercury people. This is the first time you've seen most of them on the screen. Hey, give Joe a little light. Thanks. Now smile for the folks, Joe. Smile. Joseph Cotton, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. Joseph Cotton. I think you're going to see a lot of him. Here's Ruth Warwick, whom I know you love. Ruth. Look at the camera, Ruth. We caught Ruth with her hair up. And here's somebody you've all heard on the radio, so I don't have to tell you he's wonderful. Ray Collins. Dorothy Commongore is a name I'm going to repeat. Dorothy Commongore. I won't have to repeat it much longer. You'll be repeating it. And here's George Coulouris, who's a grand actor. I'll say that name again. George Coulouris. Watch it. Here comes Everett Sloane. Look out, Everett. Oops. Everett Sloane, ladies and gentlemen, he isn't necessarily a comedian. And here's one of the best in the world, Agnes Moorehead. I've said a lot of nice things, but Erskine Sanford deserves some more. Erskine Sanford. So does Paul. Paul Stewart, everybody. Citizen Kane is a modern American story about a man called Kane, Charles Foster Kane. I don't know how to tell you about him. There's so many things to say. I'll turn you over instead to the characters in the picture. As you'll see, they feel very strongly on the subject.
Charles Foster Kane is...
Sure, he started the war. But do you think if it hadn't been for Mr. Kane, the United States would have the Panama Canal?
Charles Foster Kane is nothing more or less than a communist.
Kane, governor. Listen, when the voters of this state and Mrs. Kane learn what I found out about Mr. Kane and a certain little blondie named Susan Alexander, he couldn't be elected dog catcher. I'm going to skin Mr. Charles Foster Kane alive.
I'm going to marry him next week at the White House.
Emily, I hear you've been stepping out with Charlie Kane.
Of course I love him. I gave him $60 million.
Well, of course I love him. He's the richest man in America.
That's what all the girls say about him at first.
But you know, I can't help but admire him.
He's crazy.
He's wonderful.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you'll think about Mr. Kane. I can't imagine. You see, I play the part myself. Well, Kane is a hero and a scoundrel, a no account and a swell guy, a great lover, a great American citizen, and a dirty dog. It depends on who's talking about him. What's the real truth about Charles Foster Kane? I wish you'd come to this theater when Citizen Kane plays here and decide for yourself.
So the film is directed, produced, and stars Mr. Orson Welles. It is written by Herman J. Mankiewicz, who, all things are circular. Now he has his own fucking movie about him writing Citizen Kane. Weird. The industry loves to suck itself. On that note, we will be talking spoilers, as always. So prepare yourself for that if you haven't seen a movie that's like 70 plus years old, which Mark Begley and I hadn't. So on that note, Mr. Mike White, when was the first time you had seen this film, and what did you think rewatching it in 2021?
So,
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab proven to work fast, and proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
Well, there was a time when Citizen Kane wasn't the greatest film of all times, and it wasn't taught in film school, but I went to film school when it was the greatest film of all time, and so I saw it multiple times. Pretty much every film class I ever took, no matter what it was, would just somehow trot out Kane and be like, okay, we're going to watch Kane. It was like the first movie that you were going to check out. So I think I saw it probably for the first time in 1990 in my Humanities 252 class. And I really loved it then, and I love it every time that I watch it, and it was great revisiting it. And it looks fantastic. I've seen it on the big screen multiple times, but seeing it again on Blu-ray today, I was just like, wow, yep, this still really holds up. I really enjoy this film. Just so appreciate so many things to do with it. So yeah, that's my story.
So, Mark, I kind of already let the cat out of the bag. You had never seen this all the way through. I had never seen it at all. So, both of us coming at this kind of with fresh eyes, at least for you all the way through. What did you think watching it all the way through, Mark?
I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. This is sort of similar to the Howl's Moving Castle scenario, where I didn't see it years ago because, it's the greatest movie of all time and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't like it was just sort of a anti-cinema snob thing in my brain that I let get a hold of me. And then after a while, I just never bothered to sit down and watch it all the way through. I would catch tiny bits and pieces on TV over the last 40 years or so, probably. And for whatever reason, just wouldn't stick with it. And if I didn't catch it from the beginning, then I would stop very shortly and get kind of confused along the way and stop. And I think, again, at some point it was like, why watch the greatest of all time now? Because what do you do after that? Like you can't enjoy movies after that or something.
Yeah.
Something
I've climbed Everest. What do I do now?
Just stupid reasons, So I was actually planning on somebody else, a film director I follow on Twitter. I think he watched it for the first time a couple months ago. He was committing himself to doing this, because of the pandemic and other reasons. And I believe that was one of the first ones he mentioned. And I was like, yeah, I still haven't either. I need to do this. And it's readily available. And so this was the perfect kick in the pants to finally do it. And it's great. I mean, what can you say? I'm not going to be a contrarian here and say, Vertigo's better or whatever. It's a great movie. Is it the movie that everybody's going to enjoy the most once they watch it? No, but I really can't dispute the number one on the top of all these different lists for the film. And I'll watch it again, so.
Similarly to yourself, Mark and Mike, because I'm sure as many of us did, and you committed to it, Mike, I had thought about going to film school, and that was, it's not like I magically started liking film as soon as I did a podcast, any more than either one of y'all did. So, I used to listen to Film Spotting in high school, and they would always talk about Citizen Kane. That's fine on them. Look, I get it. I appreciate it. I'm not going to be a contrarian either. It is a great film. But to your point, Mark, the idea that somehow this is the greatest film of all time, in my mind, hurts this movie more than it helps it. Because as soon as you elevate something this high, the expectations it's never going to live up to the expectations. It is a technically impressive film. Orson Welles is amazing in it. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. But to your point, Mark, what do we do now? What do I do now? Like, this is the greatest film of all time per everyone or many people, filmmakers, critics, folks in the know alike. Okay.
Yeah, we're done. We don't need to watch any more movies, Chris.
Okay, yeah, I guess so. Fuck me then. I don't know. It's very strange because, I don't know how y'all answer this question, but I tend to not really let on what I do very often because I hate answering this goddamn idiotic question of, what's your favorite movie? What the fuck?
Black Shampoo.
I know.
Eraserhead. So
yeah,
but that is genuinely the answer you always give.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I give mine. Is
TMNT to Secret of the Ooze. I understand it.
If we're going with the movie I watched the most as a kid, that would be the answer 100%. When people ask me, my answer is Goodfellas. And I love Goodfellas. And again, Goodfellas, I think similarly to Citizen Kane, similarly to Eraserhead, and probably similarly to Black Shampoo, they're important films for the genre that they're made in. I would say that the reason Citizen Kane is important is because it's important to film, period. Whole cloth, right? That's what makes this an important movie. It's not the plot. It's not who it's talking about. It's not that it's, confronting things that were going on at the time. Those are important things, undoubtedly, but it's important because of how technically impressive it is on multiple fronts. But at the end of the day, the greatest movie of all time is going to be whatever your favorite movie is. It's not going to be Citizen Kane, unless that is genuinely your favorite movie. And then this is the greatest film of all time for you. But it's not for me, it's not for you, Mike, and it's not for you, Mark. But it is a technically impressive film that I am glad I finally sat down and watched, because I get it now, but at the same time, I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, it was a good film.
Yeah, the thing, when people bandy about greatest film of all time, it's like you have to be able to separate what you're talking about, the plot, the acting, the music, all of these things. For so much of it being called the greatest film of all time, it was a convergence of all of these things coming together, and really, it's wide angle lenses had been used before, deep focus photography had been used before, taking the camera and put it down below floor level and looking.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
Up to make these characters bigger than life, having ceilings on sets, all of that stuff had been done before, but it was pulling all of these things all together into one place and kind of taking what cinema had been and all of these disparate pieces, mashing it all together and just kind of kicking cinema in the ass. Mm-hmm. I mean, that to me is why this lands at the top of so many lists.
Yeah.
Because it kind of rewrites, I had a friend who I respect very much, and I was asking him about comic books, and I was like, hey, Mike, what comic book should I read next? And he was like, have you read The Watchmen? I said, no, I haven't ever read The Watchmen. He said, it is the Citizen Kane, and I hate when people do this. He was like, it's the Citizen Kane of comic books. But I knew exactly what he meant, because I was like, okay, all of that stuff had been done before, but it had never been done quite like it. So it is the Citizen Kane of comic books. You can throw that shit around a lot, but for him, I was just like, oh, he's serious. This is something very special. And that's, to me, what Citizen Kane is just this really special event.
Was Watchmen as good as your friend mentioned it to you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the first time I read the comic book of Watchmen, or the graphic novel. Holy shit. I was just like, wow, I can't believe that is all coming together like this.
What about Watchmen Babies, though?
Watchmen
Second
Babies
one.
was...
Second Simpsons reference today now.
It was all right, but I didn't understand why they wanted to keep playing with Rorschach, because he kept throwing stuff out of the crib. After a while, it's enough.
The idea of something else being a Citizen Kane of its own media type kind of is indicative of where this movie sits in pop culture. When you get dubbed the something of something else, but it's being compared directly to one thing, again, like you said, it doesn't have anything to do with the plot or anything else. It's so almost what's kind of insane is the plot of this film is almost not important in a way. It's almost more about like how everything is put together, right? And so it's kind of weird because, like you said, Mike, you have to really balance those two things in your mind when you watch it. Because, like you said, at one point there are all these disparate ideas being, catalyzed into this, what we consider to be modern filmmaking. But at the same time, I mean, the thing I found to be most impressive and the thing I wasn't expecting about the film, the structure of the film, the narrative structure is amazing. It is genuinely the best thing about this movie, other than Orson Welles' performance for me, is the narrative structure, because I did not know how the film was going to tell its story. And within the first 10 minutes, I was hooked primarily because of the way they were telling the story in like a quasi-documentarian kind of way. Because there's the main character is Orson Welles as Kane, and that's it. I mean, you have the narrator, but he's not a narrator because he's filmed in shadows the entire film.
He's the investigator. I mean, a lot of people will say that Citizen Kane was one of the first films noir because you've got the chiaroscuro lighting, you've got the flashback structure, you have the mystery of
MacGuffin.
What is Rosebud, the MacGuffin that we are chasing through this whole thing, and it's just an excuse to follow a man's life and have it told from all of these different perspectives. I mean, it's kind of Rashomon so many years before Rashomon, and then you've got I love how you've got the opening and then you cut to that news on the march segment. So it's like one of the first faux documentaries that we've got going on here with this whole news on the march, and the way that he's shooting news on the march. That is fantastic to me. Like the overhead shot of Kane being pushed by the attendant, and you can tell that the photographer is up in a tree looking down, like sneaking these shots of Kane in his later years, or those flashbacks to him with like Hitler or him with Teddy Roosevelt, and the way that they're shooting it so that it looks like old-timey footage. This is 1941 when this is happening, so he's like already parroting stuff that was 15, 20 years old, and he's just like, oh yeah, like throw all this stuff together. That news on the march segment in and of itself is like something you could write a term paper on. And there's so many moments in Citizen Kane where it's like, oh, I could write a paper about this. I could write a paper about how when he slaps Susan, you hear a woman screaming in the background. And it's like, it's kind of the replacement for the emotional distress that's going on. I know Mark is a huge fan of the cockatoo scene. Could probably write a whole paper about that as well.
Boy, I'm glad I had that sound turned on my nice speakers in my living room for that one. Again, having never seen this, only having seen essentially GIFs of Orson Welles clapping. The cockatoo scene, yeah. Boy, that's something. That's a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scared the shit out of me.
That news on the march, right from the get-go, I was like, oh man, this is so well done. It cops that style. I mean, if you've seen any of those old newsreels, which maybe a lot of people haven't these days, but I remember seeing them in just watching old stuff on TV when I was a kid. They nail it completely. All the the marriages where it looks like newsreel footage and it's all grain, maybe a little heavy-handed on the grain that they created for it, but or the wear and tear on it. But that ended up being, I watched it the last 3 days in a row. I watched it 3 times.
Wow.
Because the nonlinear narration or the nonlinear narrative threw me off a little bit, and I missed quite a bit of stuff. This does kind of suffer from tell, don't show a little bit. Uh-huh. And so I get confused if they're just talking about something and I'm not seeing it. So, but we can get back into that later. But that news on the march thing just really had me smiling the whole time. Each time I watched, that's probably my favorite part, along with the scenes of Susan Alexander practicing singing and flopping as an opera star. But you mentioned the Roosevelt and Hitler scenes, and at first I was like, oh my God, they pulled a Forrest Gump. Somehow back then with maybe split screen or something. And then I realized, oh no, these are just guys in makeup, but they were so well done. And again, you don't need the Forrest Gump CGI insertion of him with Hitler and Roosevelt. You need some dude that looks like him, shoot it from a certain kind of angle, and make it look like old footage. There you go.
Yeah,
done however many decades prior. So that was really, really impressive to me. Just that whole, I could watch that newsreel scene just over and over again.
And it was really good to see that the actor that they cast as Hitler used the right hand.
Yeah.
It was Hitler was left-handed. Everybody knows that. Come on now. It's, like you mentioned, Mark, it's interesting because that kind of leads you into this, the way the narrative is being told. And it also gives you an idea of where Orson Welles is going, because he is sticking the needles in. Obviously this movie is not just about William Randolph Hearst, but William Randolph Hearst could not be convinced of that at the time, that it was not just about him. But the fact that he's already sticking the needles into these folks in the first 10 minutes of the movie, he never lets up. And I appreciate that, because again, I did not know what the angle was going to be. I knew that Hearst had a huge issue with this film. He tried to block it from being released, all that. But I just didn't expect that in the first 10 minutes of this movie, you would have him being like, yeah, this guy did whatever it took to get whatever he wanted, including, hanging out with Hitler and hanging out with Roosevelt, It's again, I appreciate Orson Welles just being like, I'm taking him to task right off the bat.
A lot of people hung out with Hitler before he declared war, and even a little bit afterwards. I mean, my boy Henry Ford, big Hitler fan. Yeah.
Henry Ford, fan of Hitler.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing about that newsreel is that it tells the whole story. You get the whole story in a microcosm right from the start. And I thought, that's interesting. And I knew that this was told in flashbacks, and that the investigator I probably read about this first in Danny Peary's cult movies. And it's not a super in-depth reading of the film, but a number of the film books that I have, of course, mention it. And so you have a lot of that stuff, I guess, spoiled, as we would say today. But like I mentioned, that nonlinear structure, and you mentioned Rashomon, Mike, and I was actually expecting a little bit more Rashomon-esque differences. Like the Susan Alexander story would be very different from the Jedediah Leland story. Well, she told you this, but let me tell you what really happened. And you don't get that. You get some crossover of the stories, but it seems like they basically match up. So that was one thing that I thought might have been interesting if because he doesn't seem like, he does horrible things, but like Jedediah says, he's not a brutal man. He does brutal things. I don't really see him as that awful of a character. And maybe it's just because of the time it was made. I could think of people that are a lot worse than how he's portrayed in the film. But I was expecting a little bit more of really super negative stuff from people. Yes, he screws a bunch of people over. Yes, he only really cares about himself. But I don't quite get why Hearst was so upset by this. I don't know if he ever watched the movie or not, but being a guy with as huge of an ego as he has, I would think that he'd be like, oh, this isn't that bad. I've done much worse.
I think some of it was because of the Susan Alexander character and how closely she paralleled Marianne Davies, and this whole idea of like him propping up Marianne Davies and her having a career. But from what I understand, Marianne Davies was actually very talented, but to take her and make fun of her and cast her as this kind of low-class Susan Alexander character with that kind of Born Yesterday type voice and all that, and just the real thick accent and kind of classless and baseless, and really can't pull the talent off that she needs to when it comes to that. That amazing camera going up into the rafters, and you get the one guy who just holds his nose, just such a small gesture. Oh, I absolutely love that. Yeah, I think then the rumor is, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, the rumor is that Rosebud was the name that Randolph Hearst gave to Marion Davies' sex parts.
Yeah, that's what I read. I read that, I don't know, in something today or yesterday. I thought, well, who the hell else would know that,
Yeah.
You know what's funny, Mark, and this is something we talk about a lot, and I know that the three of us probably have to deal with this, and I know, Mike, you address it, and I've already addressed it here, the spoiler thing. What's funny about this movie is, there's no way to spoil this movie. You could, if you spoil this movie for someone by saying Rosebud was the sled, so what? So what, right? And it's what's weird to me is, given the context of the film the way I was watching the film in 2021, as someone in the 21st century, not in 41 when the film came out, or when the film was kind of re-looked at in 1956, thanks to Andre Bazin's massive reopening of the story of how important this film is. It's funny to me how bored so many people would be watching this movie, and it's really sad at the same time. Because if you know the thing about Rosebud being the sled, it doesn't matter. No. And that I think is, it's like the thing I took away, and I know Orson Welles didn't mean to do this, but it's something that I took away. That final scene is as much as a kind of not a condemnation, but kind of a reflection on a man's life, as much as it is a reflection on film. One part of a film does not define the entire film. And, when people get really upset about spoilers in this day and age, which people really do, and again, I think I'm drawing from something that Orson Welles didn't intend. It's
bugs crashing your pack's party. Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
It has always struck me as odd because why are you upset? Like, does it really ruin your satisfaction and enjoyment of a film? Right. If you know that this movie's twist is that Rosebud is a sled, it's not going to ruin your enjoyment of the movie one bit.
No, like Mark said, it's the MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
And only we find out what the sled, that Rosebud is the sled. The reporter never finds it out.
Right, exactly.
I kind of like that. We're in this privileged position, and we're in the privileged position of hearing him say Rosebud at the beginning.
Right.
Really, no one else is around, even though somehow they know that that's the last word that he says. And then even Raymond, the butler, is like, oh, yeah, I was there. I heard it. And it's like, I didn't see you in the room when it happened.
That was one of the confusing. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike.
No problem. I was just trying to make a Hamilton reference.
I was say that was one of the things that was a little bit confusing to me was, okay, the nurse comes in pretty quickly. She heard him say Rosebud?
Right.
Was there somebody in the room that we're not seeing?
He's pretty quiet when he says it.
Yeah, and he's whispering, and I thought, okay, plot hole. Oh, no.
I think my favorite thing was that some people weren't even convinced that he had said it. He was just like a crazy old man there at the end saying weird things. Yeah, CinemaSins, Jesus H.
11 things wrong with Citizen Kane.
1100 more.
Yeah,
like.
yeah, man. Something wrong in every minute of this film. Every frame is a problem.
Look at this makeup. He doesn't look like an old man. Can you believe that he plays this whole thing as a 24-year-old?
Holy shit, guys.
He's so fucking handsome. The first time you see him as a young man is like, after he gets taken from his mother, and then you see him like folds down the newspaper. It's just like, wow, Orson Welles, holy shit. And then the way he makes himself age throughout the entire thing is fantastic. His hairline starts receding when he's giving the political speech, and then he's completely bald at the end when he's smashing up Susan's room. He just looks ancient. I really like what they did with the makeup.
The makeup is beyond impressive, given that the person doing the makeup is, essentially just like somebody that was working at RKO. It's, Maurice Siderman was a junior member of the department. And I mean, we talk about old man makeup and aging makeup a lot now. And obviously in 2021, the industry has the crutch of anti-aging where even Chris Evans can look like Joe Biden. I mean, come on. Holy shit. Captain America at the end of that movie looked like Joe Biden, and I can't believe otherwise. But what's odd to me is how good it looks. I can't tell if partially it's because it's in black and white. That probably helps a lot.
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
Not probably, it totally does. But even then, I don't sit and look at Orson Welles and go, that doesn't look good. Right. Like you said, Mike, I go, he's 24 years old here.
Right.
Like,
and he's got the voice. He can make the voice sound old as well. And that's the thing. All of these guys coming from radio. I mean, pretty much all of your main cast is working with the Mercury Company, coming into this from the Mercury Radio, and just they're great actors. I mean, Agnes Moorehead would go on to a huge career. All of these people would go on to so much. I mean, Joseph Cotton was working till the day he died. I mean, just fantastic that he was able to introduce all of these actors in, and then be able to give those vocal performances and sound like an old man, even though he is only 24 years old. And it's not like they're messing with the tape. It's not like they've got, Pro Tools. Right. Oh yeah, let me just pitch this down a little bit, Orson. It'll sound a lot better.
No, I was just going to say, I was actually surprised. I knew that Orson Welles aged throughout the film. I was kind of surprised by some of the other ones, like Thatcher. I'm like, is that the same guy?
Yeah.
Young and old? Is Bernstein? A few of them I was like unsure of the first watch until, close to the end when you'd see them through different times. And I thought, man, that was really well done. And I still don't think old age makeup is done all that well.
No.
80 years later. When it's done really well and you just don't even realize it, that's like the only time you think, oh, that was the same actor. But it can still look not that great in this day and age.
It's so convincing that I did for a time forget the age of Orson Welles.
Yeah, right.
Especially, and I think that the moment that it really hits for me the most, and obviously I'm not, coming up with some grand new idea here, the breakfast scene, right? I mean, the breakfast scene is kind of the scene where they get to show off how good they are. I mean, that's kind of what this film feels like, and you mentioned it before, Mike. It's like every scene, or a lot of scenes in this film, feel like let's do something cool. Let's give off some big balls energy here. Like, let's really do what we can to give the audience something interesting. My favorite thing here about Maurice Siderman and Orson Welles, stand-up dude, right? I think we all agree. Mel Burns refused to give Maurice Siderman any credit for the makeup. So Orson Welles takes out a fucking large advertisement in the LA newspaper, particularly thanking Maurice Siderman for being the best makeup man in Hollywood, or in the world, actually. And I mean, again, it just, people talk about Orson Welles, and I think now Orson Welles, similarly to Marlon Brando, has become kind of a joke, I guess, because of, I was there when they were filming the Orson Welles wine commercial. He was so drunk. And it's like, guys, I mean, sure, but he made F is for Fake. He made Citizen Kane. He caused a bunch of yokels to think that aliens were invading. I mean, any one of those three things, I mean, at least the World's broadcast and, Citizen Kane are very important for a lot of reasons. But, Orson Welles, this is the first Orson Welles starring role that I've ever seen him in. And to your point, Mike, like I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't think it was going to be this good because I didn't think it would live up to expectations because rarely do films like this live up to the expectations. And Orson Welles' performance didn't just live up to them, it exceeded them. And I mean, everyone else in the film is great. You guys have already mentioned some of the female actresses that share screen time with Orson Welles, but this is an Orson Welles performance for the ages. It's one of the greatest performances of all time. I mean, that for me is probably the bigger takeaway from the film is not, the movie's amazing for all these technical reasons. Orson Welles' performance is so good that his delivery of the line, and it's my favorite line in the film, "You can't do this to me," is the best line, in my opinion, in this film because it cuts to the core of that character. And when Susan Alexander goes, "Oh, I can," you see the facade is gone. It's all over. It's over. And like the Orson Welles performance in this film, like say what you will about the film, but Orson Welles in this film is just, you're operating at 11 and everyone else is going to 10. I mean, that, Spinal Tap joke aside, like it is that good.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was surprised at is how contemporary it felt to me in the acting. It wasn't that transatlantic accent throughout and melodramatic. And so that was another surprise that made it an easy watch, I guess, and to just be like, okay, let's see what you got, greatest movie of all time, and sort of let the guard down on that.
Show me. Show, don't tell.
That you mentioned the breakfast scene, and the other thing that I think came to mind for me watching that is, okay, this is very inventive, and we've got those pans and the makeup and costume changes. And yet it's not, it serves the story. It serves the purpose of that scene to show what's going on with this couple over this 12, 16 years. And not just that they're aging in front of our eyes, but what's happening to their relationship. So everything that's being done in that, as technically tricky and fun as it is, serves the story. And then at the end, we pan back out, or I'm sorry, what's the proper movie term for that?
When you
Dolly
out, yeah.
I'm working on that. I always say pan like everybody else does, and I'm working on it. But when they dolly back out and the table, it's not the little table anymore, and they're not side by side anymore, and they're way apart, and she's reading the Chronicle, and it's like, oh man, that was so good. That was so good.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, some of those shots, I've said this before, and this is not, again, groundbreaking stuff. So many of the shots in the movie are special effect shots, and like to the point of just, dissolves, those kind of things, or like overlays, double exposures, those kind of things. But then you watch a scene like the miniature of the club where Susan Alexander works, and how you go through the sign, and they had to have pulled apart that sign as you're going through it. And then there's the skylight, and you go to the skylight, and there's a flash of lightning, which kind of covers the cut for it to go and then dissolve through the skylight into there. And then she's at the table, and it looks like it's all one shot. It's just gorgeous stuff.
Well, you mentioned the response of the people up in the rafters when the guy's holding his nose.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, that's great. And that's also a special effects shot. I just read today where, they're going up, and then they do a what do they call it? A curtain swipe, I guess, to kind of hide the cut. And then it's a miniature.
Yeah.
And then they do another sweep, and it goes back to being live. So it wasn't a camera actually traveling this great height up to these guys. And I was like, what? And I thought, okay, I'm going to watch that scene again. And then I had read, I think last night, about the scene in the cabin, or his old home.
Oh, yeah.
And how the camera is dollying back.
Yeah.
And a table appears. You don't see it appear. You see his hat wobble.
Right.
I saw his hat wobble the first time I saw it, and I thought it was because she bumped the table.
Right.
Not that a table was swung in after, it's those guys. I don't even think about that. And then I read it either in Wikipedia or, IMDb or whatever. And I go, why did I miss that?
Yeah. Well, because it's so seamless.
Right.
They're tricking you constantly with all of this stuff.
There's a shot in Dead and Buried where a camera starts outside of a house and dollies back. and you're following a character as they're walking up the sidewalk. Camera keeps going back, and is in the house now. And then the character opens the door. And again, I don't think about that when I'm watching it, but having read about that movie since I talked about it on my show, I was like, that was a special effect. They had the door on the camera.
Yeah.
Backed it up. When the door got to the frame, people were screwing it in, and then the camera kept pulling back. And I was like, I didn't even realize to think that this was, that they were conveying to me that this camera is going through a door. It didn't even dawn on me. And that's the same kind of thing with the table and the sign opening up. And now, they would just do a CGI sign. And so the camera wouldn't have to,
well, it's like a Fincher shot. It's like Fincher's camera going through the handle of the tea kettle, continuing on through that to the rest of the kitchen. I can't remember if that one is Fight Club or if it's what's the Room one where Jodie Foster's Panic Room. Thank you. I mean, just all of those things where it's just like, and you can see why he was such a fan of wanting to humiliate Orson Welles by making Mank.
So hold on a second. I
haven't seen Mank.
I haven't watched it either. And I haven't watched it because it's just...
Yeah. The thing so for folks listening at home, like I said, Citizen Kane wasn't always held up on this pedestal. Chrissy talked about how Bazin helped start that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it really, it started to pick up steam 50s, 60s, 70s, and then Pauline Kael comes out with this hatchet piece of Welles really didn't write the script, had nothing to do with it. It was all Herman Mankiewicz. And then basically Welles has to spend the rest of his short amount of years after that defending himself and being like, no, actually, I helped co-write this script. Herman and I worked on this together. But
bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed, lab-proven to work fast, and proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Deaf Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
That poisoned this well of, no, Orson Welles is a fake, a phony. He has no talent. It was all Mankiewicz, and it's all stolen valor. And when Mank started to get promoted, I was just like, this looks like it's the Pauline Kael version of things. So I didn't want to watch it because I was afraid I would get too angry.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't, I guess having not seen Citizen Kane yet, it just really held no special appeal to me to see it. And right. I like David Fincher a lot. I like a lot of his films. But yeah, it just like,
I haven't seen RKO 281 either, because it's like, okay, it's a movie about making a movie. It's like, no, I'd rather just watch Citizen Kane than watch I love Liev Schreiber, but I don't really want to see Liev Schreiber be Orson Welles. I'd rather watch Orson Welles. I mean, my favorite Orson Welles who isn't Orson Welles was when they had Maurice LaMarche voice and Vincent D'Onofrio face inside of Ed Wood. That's like my favorite faux Orson Welles. And it's such a great part to it, him talking with Johnny Depp as Ed Wood. But yeah, I don't need to see the making of Citizen Kane or the unmaking of Citizen Kane. I'll just watch Citizen Kane, thanks.
And to be fair, it's not like Herman Mankiewicz, didn't get an Oscar for his time on the script. I mean, look, I think all of us would agree that in this day and age, especially when things need to get readdressed, possibly due to things having gone on at a time when, things like this could have happened, and they still can, but now it's a little less likely because everybody's tuned into the internet and everybody can talk about everything all the time. Everything I've read about what Pauline Kael wrote seems like she's, she loved Herman Mankiewicz, and she's going to go to bat for him, which is fine. You're allowed to do that. But I do have a problem with you tearing down someone else in the process, because Herman Mankiewicz and Orson Welles writing the script and who got the credit and who didn't. Look, this seems to me to have been the argument about who directed Poltergeist before that was a thing. I mean, that is now this kind of somewhat equivalency here where it's like, but he didn't direct it, it's like, does it fucking matter? Does it ultimately matter to anyone other than people who give a shit about that minor thing? Because guess what? We'll be talking about Poltergeist on Wake Up Heavy sometime soon. But it doesn't diminish my appreciation of the film.
Right.
Herman Mankiewicz, It's not like he never worked again. I mean, That would be the problem, is if Orson Welles blackballed him out of the industry. He did.
Right.
The guy won an Oscar with Orson Welles for the film. What the fuck do you want? I mean, what in God's name do you want more than that? I mean, the man worked on The Wizard of Oz, Pride of St. Louis. Oh, so many really well-known scripts. No one is going to call into question Herman Mankiewicz's ability to write a script. And I don't understand why throwing Orson Welles under the bus is cool unless you're just doing it to throw Orson Welles under the bus, which seems like that was the case. And I wanted to mention my favorite Orson Welles performance that isn't Orson Welles is pretty much any time Pinky and the Brain is on, because Pinky, the Brain is just an Orson Welles, kind of parody, I guess. I don't know if it's a parody. I mean, it's almost just too spot on to be. It's not. I mean, it's funny, but it's funny not because what he's saying is funny.
Well, when they redid the Frozen Peas spot, it was just so good. And then somebody actually took Orson Welles' audio from the Frozen Peas bit and put it over when Pinky and the Brain did it. So good. So good.
But, to your point, Mike, the reason I haven't watched Mankiewicz or Mank, I guess is what it's called, is, I read enough about this movie to know that, like you said, what's the point? I'd rather just watch this movie again, and I probably will within the next week. But I'm not going to go sit and watch a 2-hour, not hit piece, but just a 2-hour piece about how great Herman Mankiewicz was. You know what I have to do to find that out? I could just watch Citizen Kane.
And it's not like Wells tried to steal from all these people and just be like, me, 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 me. I mean, it's like he will immediately start pointing to a Greg Toland when it comes to the cinematography.
Or Maurice Cederman.
Exactly. Yeah. Take out a full-page ad for somebody that did your makeup. Okay.
No. Orson Welles doesn't care. You don't understand.
Right.
I mean, Orson Welles is not actually Citizen Kane in real life.
Exactly.
I mean, what's kind of weird to me is I think there's this bizarre equivocation now that Orson Welles is Citizen Kane, and everything I've read about Orson Welles, maybe later in life, he became a parody, but it wasn't his fault, or it was, depending on your outlook on it. But again, I've never gotten a sense reading anything about Orson Welles that this man was an egomaniac who was having his lines fed to him through an earpiece on the set of Island of Dr. Moreau type thing,
Right. Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, the story that I like to believe is that he was on the outs with Hollywood after Magnificent Ambersons, even a little bit after Citizen Kane, but mostly after Ambersons when they stole the film from him and recut it. And then he had troubles getting stuff made for the rest of his life. So it was always just this kind of let me do the wine commercials. Let me do the Frozen Pea commercials. Let me do the little cameo in the Muppet movies and these kind of things in order to fund my next project. And he was always working, always trying to get things off the ground. And it would take him years and years to do things he talks about Othello and when the characters here, he's in one country. When he opens the door, he goes to another country because he had to be able to shoot over here and then be able to take those same actors and shoot over here because it took so long to get these projects made. And also just it was so ragtag as far as money goes that he'd be looking for the cheapest way to get things done.
Yeah, and I think a lot from what I've read, which isn't a whole heck of a lot, but it seems like his brash ignorance was what fueled Citizen Kane and made it brilliant. And then he learned too much. And that's when you start thinking and double guessing. And that can really, one of the things I read today, and I can't remember if it was just on Wikipedia or one of the books I was looking at, where they were talking about he wouldn't finish projects because it was like he was scared of that final product. Like, oh, this isn't going to live up to Kane, or this isn't going to live up to, initially what Amberson's was. And that's a very telling thing about someone who starts to second guess themselves. And I've felt that in my life with things much less important than films and other things. So that kind of struck me as very interesting about, because you hear about all these things. And what was the one that just came out on Netflix that got finished by Bogdanovich? And
Other Side of the Wind.
Yeah, it's almost like you just stop it because you don't want to fail. You don't want to finish it and then have it be a disaster. It's just like, well, let's just let it not happen. And not even that he was doing that consciously, but I think coming out of the gate like that and just saying, well, we're just going to do all this stuff because I don't know anything about film except for what I've absorbed, and these shots look fun, and let's do it, screw it. We've got a cameraman who's up for it and wants to do deep focus and all these other interesting things. So,
man, some of those shots just still floor me. Like him in the foreground writing that review for Jedediah, and Jedediah all the way in the background, and then walking up, and I'm like, this isn't a split diopter. This is all in focus. This is just perfectly shot. Or when Susan Alexander is doing a jigsaw puzzle, and he again is all the way in the back, and you can see him perfectly, you see her perfectly, and it's like, oh god, this is so nice. Or like that we never see the face of the reporter, that every time that he's around he's in darkness, and I'm just like, wow. Like the opening after the news on the march, when they cut to that room, that smoky room with all those guys in shadows, and just all of that beautiful lighting that they're doing, when the one guy stands in front of the light from the projector and he's just completely in silhouette. It's one of the best shots that I've ever seen. And that it's, still stands up from 1941. It's just like, holy shit, this is great.
And the other thing that is great is the journalists kind of feel like the chorus of the film in a way.
Oh yeah.
Right? Obviously the chiaroscuro lighting really helps kind of reinforce that, since you never get to see their faces or learn who they are as characters. They seem to be just kind of on an autonomous mass that lives within the realm of the film. But to your point, it's almost like every scene in this movie is important. And I think while that might be hyperbolic in a way, I don't think it's far from the truth.
No.
But again, for those of you who don't know, and again, I wasn't super duper, Orson Welles informed before today, or before talking about this film, but Orson Welles went on to do, like you guys have mentioned, The Magnificent Ambersons, The Lady from Shanghai, Touch of Evil, The Trial, Chimes at Midnight, F for Fake. All of those are also considered to be some of the greatest films of all time, or at least in that conversation. So to me, there's so much going on with Orson Welles it's in my mind, I guess I didn't realize how established Orson Welles really ended up being in the industry. And I'm not sure a lot of other folks realize that either, given how everyone talks about Citizen Kane, and that it's not it, but that seems to be where the conversation ends with Orson Welles' career as a director. Is Citizen Kane, it's not that anything else isn't important, but everything else seems to kind of fall by the wayside, even though even something like Magnificent Ambersons, I've never seen it, but having read enough about it to know, it got considered to be one of the greatest films of all time, and it wasn't even the version that Welles wanted, which speaks to the credit of who Orson Welles was as a director.
Yeah. I mean, really, it was very quickly after Ambersons that he was not a welcome presence. And so you get, like you mentioned, Lady from Shanghai. I'll be reading a lot more about that later on this year. But from what I understand, that was kind of hey, we want you as we want you as an actor. And he was like, well, okay, but as long as I can direct too. So it was just a lot of like finagling and getting these things done. Like Touch of Evil was like a total fluke for him to actually be able to direct and star in that one again. And I don't think people realize this, but with Touch of Evil, all of that weight and everything that he has, that's all makeup again. So it's like he did not look like that character, that was not really him. He especially loved to fuck with his nose. You would see like in so many movies like Mr. Arkadin and stuff, he would just fuck with that nose, and he never would really like let his own nose be shown for a lot of the time that he was in front of a camera, because he just loved to play with makeup.
And also, what I love about Orson Welles, because it's something that I have to deal with myself, the dude has a baby face until he has facial hair.
Oh, yeah.
It's so shocking a transformation that you put even the smallest amount of facial hair on this guy, and he looks like he's 10, 20, 30 years older than he actually... I mean, this film is kind of obviously the best example of that, because, I mean, it's the old man makeup plus the facial hair. But as soon as Orson Welles has some facial hair on him, he dissolves into the character. And he doesn't look like 24-year-old Orson Welles. He looks like old man Citizen Kane, old Charles Kane, sitting in his bed with his snow globe.
It was weird. I watched The Stranger last night, because that's another one that I hadn't seen all the way through. And he has a mustache through pretty sure the whole movie. But he was really thin in that. So even though he had the mustache, he actually looked younger to me. And I think he had some gray in his hair and stuff. It was really interesting to see him in that. And he looked kind of bedraggled and already kind of tired of being and doing these movies that weren't quite up to snuff. And I'm not sure what the pedigree is of that film.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Film, but it seems like a lot of what was missing was that group of actors that he brought over from the radio program, and just not being as dynamic as they were in that. And also the writing, I don't remember who wrote that one, but I know it wasn't him, and it surely wasn't Herman J. Mankiewicz. But I think it was lightning in a bottle with Citizen Kane, having that core group of actors that he had worked so closely with on the radio show. The cinematographer, who I believe he never worked with again. Probably never worked with that makeup guy again. I know he worked with Joseph Cotton a lot. I don't know how many of the other actors from the Mercury radio program he worked with throughout the years, but it all came together again in that first outing. And it's like, well, you can't just keep constantly doing that over and over and over again.
How sure are you, Mark Begley, that Herman Mankiewicz wasn't involved in that script? How sure are you?
I have no idea.
How sure are you is the real question.
I don't remember seeing his name.
And we were talking about kind of Orson Welles and kind of his changing looks and his ability to transform. Another thing about Orson Welles I do appreciate, the man never wasn't good looking either, which is the funny thing. Like when I think of Orson Welles, I I don't know what image comes to mind for y'all, because obviously you guys have a different frame of reference. Mike, having seen Citizen Kane and some of his other films. Mark, similarly. I think of the F is for fake Orson Welles. I think of the, not old man Orson Welles, but not far from it. I mean, that was his last film that he finished. He would pass away 11 years later, but that's the Orson Welles that I think of. And what's funny to me is I don't think that that's I don't think that that is a bad... It's like the Elvis conversation, right? Like, nobody wants to remember Elvis as old, tired Elvis at Lake Tahoe performing 40 times a week for a bunch of old biddies who never got to see Elvis when he was rocking the suede leather outfit. When I think of Orson Welles and F is for Fake, I don't think of him as a parody of himself, which so many actors and directors, as they age and they get into their older age, like they kind of swerve and steer into that as a way of like kind of hanging a lantern on it. Like, yeah, I'm old now and I'm fat or I've gained weight or what have you. But Orson, like, to me, Orson Welles is just one of those people who, when I think about him, especially with F is for Fake, or F for Fake, excuse me, especially with F for Fake, I don't think that I'm off base saying that that's my version of Orson Welles, but I think now with Citizen Kane, I can't unsee him as the man standing in front of a giant picture of himself screaming about how everyone is going to love him. Boy, that really felt oddly reminiscent of things that we've been hearing, had been hearing, thank God, for the last 4 years. Apparently, not to get political, but apparently our good friend number 45 loves this movie and is obsessed with the character of Charles Kane.
I heard that's bullshit. I read the same thing, but it quickly said that he says this to sound smart and that his actual favorite movie is Bloodsport. So, yeah.
Well, it's like him in reading. Like, you don't actually believe that he ever read that book on Andrew Jackson. But that's like the one book that he mentioned the entire 4 years. It's not like you're getting like the Obama style, here's what movies I watched, here's what books I recommend. Yeah.
In and of itself, though, kind of curated and kind of horseshit, but at least he's trying.
Yeah.
At least he's not saying Citizen Kane, the movie everybody says is amazing. Yeah, it's my favorite movie, guy.
Right. Yeah. Which book of the Bible is your favorite? Oh, all of them. I love all of them.
I can't pick one.
All good.
They're all so good.
I love all of them equally.
Yes,
there's good people. There's good books on both sides.
It's not good to choose a favorite
yeah.
Bible verse.
Some people might like Ruth. Other people might like Job. Then you got those letters from Corinthians. They're all great.
Love my God.
My Orson Welles is why I opened up with what I did. The Paul Masson wine commercials. I mean, that's growing up in the 70s. That's what I knew him from. And he would make appearances on some talk shows and stuff back then, but I knew him from the commercials and probably had some indication that he was an actor, but didn't know about Citizen Kane until I was in my teens at the earliest. And the movie that I correspond him to the most is Catch-22, because it's probably the film that he's in that I have watched the most in my life. So when I think of him, a little bit older, a little bit heavier, that's the image that I have.
And still good looking as a heavy man, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's a great fucking movie, so.
Yeah. Again, Orson Welles could pull off being the skinny dude or the heavier dude, and he's still a very good looking man, a very talented actor, regardless of how much wine he's drinking in a commercial. I don't know why that's like the obsession now in like the 21st century is like trying to find people who remember Orson Welles getting drunk. Like,
yep. Yeah, that was weird.
It came up when I searched. I'm like, I couldn't quite remember the quote. And I was like, is it, I will sell no wine or I will drink no wine? And I'm like, no, that's not it. And I wanted to get it right. And then, of course, everything that came up when I searched was Orson Welles drunk during the Paul Masson commercials. And I was like, okay, I just want to know what the quote is.
The French.
I mean, everybody wants to get hung up on Orson Welles drinking wine, but like, does anyone think about actors having to eat food on set over and over again?
Oh God!
Oh my God! Can you imagine how many French fries Tim Roth ate on the set of Pulp Fiction in the diner? Like, no, who cares? What does it matter? what does it even factor in anything? And again, it's kind of it's randomly and oddly eroded what I consider to be the legacy of Orson Welles. Because he doesn't need to be remembered as the guy selling the wine. He needs to be remembered by people and understood today by, budding film enthusiasts that we all were at one point. He needs to be seen as the guy who directed Citizen Kane, the gentleman who created F for Fake, the guy who, again, with the War of the Worlds broadcast, but not the guy selling wine. And if that's your frame of reference, it's a fucking shame. And for me, the longest time, it was. And I'm so glad that I finally sat down and watched this movie because, oh boy.
I mean, it's a technical achievement to rival anything that's coming out 80 years later. It really is. I mean, it's amazing. Just, again, going back to those deep focus shots and how some of them aren't actually deep focus shots. They're optically printed shots. And I didn't realize that, again, reading it after watching it 3 times. And they use the whole bag of tricks. The shot that I really love is in the cabin again when they're at the table and he's in the window, way in the background. And apparently that was rear projection. The kid wasn't even on the set, and I thought, wow. I mean, it doesn't.
Oh, well, they use the sound to tie it together so beautifully.
Right.
You can hear him outside, like the Union forever, as the union of his family is being broken apart. And then his dad goes over and very pointedly closes the window. And then she goes over and very pointedly opens the window. And then you get that reverse shot of her. It's like, oh, that's so nice. And when he closes the window, the sound goes away. And when she opens it back up, you hear it again. It's so nice.
Yeah, that whole scene in the cabin is just amazing. And then when at the end there, well, I love, first of all, how the dad changes his tune the second he hears the money that's involved. And I had to listen really hard the third time I watched it. I was like, is he saying 50,000 a year or 15? Because 15 would have been a lot for back then. 50 would have just been astronomical for the both of them until they died. But he changes his tune on a dime. And then that last shot of little Charles glaring up at his dad, it's just like, well, that's all you need to know what that relationship was. And, I think that's part of the story. All the technical stuff aside, it's just, and maybe this is simplistic, but, it's just a story about a guy that misses the thing that was most important to him. And, it's a MacGuffin through the whole movie. We're the only ones to find out about it at the end. You get that release. I read somewhere that later in life, Orson Welles didn't like the ending, thought it was kind of a hokey, melodramatic thing. I'm glad it's in there, though. To not know what Rosebud is at the end would be eternally frustrating. So, I mean, I kind of get what he's saying, but I like that it's in there, even knowing, like you say, I mean, if at this point you don't know what Rosebud is and how it relates to the movie, I don't know what to say, but as a spoiler, it doesn't matter because it still hits you emotionally when you see that at the end get tossed in there and you think he had it this whole time. It was in all his junk. There's a scene where he's talking about going and getting the stuff from Colorado in storage that he kept from the old cottage. And it's like he still held on to it, but did he realize that he didn't have it? Or was it not until he saw that snow globe when she left that it dawned on him that that's what he had been missing?
Right.
I don't know. It seems like when he picked up all that stuff up, although someone else probably picked it up for him and brought it to the castle and all that. But, and those scenes of that interior in the castle when she's doing the jigsaw puzzle and they're 30 feet apart from each other in this giant room and can't even hear each other talk. It's like, oh man.
But it's great too, because it probably wasn't even that big of a room, but they knew to hang the black velvet all around so it looks like it just goes off into blackness, and then adding all that echo onto their voices to make it sound like they are so far apart. It's just because, him coming from that radio world, it's just like, okay, yeah, we'll add some echo. It'll make the room sound like it's huge.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff with the vocalizations. I was really impressed with that. And you mentioned, that when they get older, they all sound like they're older. But just the kind of pitch and modulation through the scenes and the emphasis on words. And it's hard to believe that this was most of their first time in front of a camera. regardless of how many years they had been on radio, it's a completely different medium. When you're dealing with blocking and hitting marks and interacting actually with people and, body movements and all that stuff. It's not the same as radio acting, unless they did all that in the studio, which I highly doubt. But it's remarkable that was most of their first acting roles in a film. I can't think of a bad performance in the movie.
No, and the thing is for a film with Orson Welles as the lead, you would think that Orson Welles would overshadow everyone else. But to your point, Mark, there's so many good performances, and the way that the film is structured, it gives everybody an opportunity to interact with Orson Welles and play off of each other, and then also just kind of show their own talents as an actor. I mean, Joseph Cotton's scene where he's talking about, we're going down to the store and get me a couple cigarettes. The nurse here doesn't like that I spoke them. It's like this dude who is pretending to kind of be this old, I guess, out of touch old man is like, no, but he's like, he knows that the journalist sees right through it. Because it's all a lie. Like, it's all a lie, and everything kind of ends up being, so much of what goes on the film ends up kind of being Rashomon-esque, but it turns out to not be. But I do love that Orson Welles and Herman Mankiewicz gave the actors an opportunity, with the script to have the Orson Welles scenes, but also give them an opportunity on their own because, Dorothy Comeniore as Susan Alexander, she's great in her scenes too. It's very heartbreaking, but at the same time, you feel for her character, but you understand how she got caught up in someone like Charles Kane. And then you have Ray Collins, who plays Jim W. Geddes, Big Boss Geddes, and he's great. And he's in one scene in this entire movie?
Yeah.
It's wild to me. And even someone like Ruth Warwick, who, it's not that she's not given a lot to do, but she's pretty much in the first half of the movie, and then the second half she's gone. Her final scene with Orson Welles is, you can tell how heartbroken her character is without her even having to say anything. When she's like, are you coming home? And he's like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm here.
Well, and just even back to the breakfast scene, she's just sitting in a chair the whole time, and it's all face and voice that's showing the breakdown of their marriage and her, disappointment in him not being there. And the guy that plays Bernstein, he looks familiar to me. I'm sure I've seen him in some other old movies, but I gotta say he's my favorite throughout the film. I just love that guy. Everett Sloan, I think, was his name. And he gets, he's in every version. We've got, I guess we start with Thatcher's story, and then who's next? I guess Susan, and then Jedediah, and I'm probably missing one. But he, along with Jedediah, kind of strings the whole story together, and they all get great lines. It's not like Kane has all the best lines. Bernstein has great lines. Joseph Cotton as Jedediah has great lines. Susan Alexander. That Chris, you mentioned when she says, "Oh yes, I can," after he says, "You can't do this to me." I mean, it's just like, fuck yeah, chick, get out of there, man.
Man had not learned anything. Hasn't learned anything. More at 9. I mean, it's.
And she knows what she's leaving, and it just ain't worth it. She can still get jigsaw puzzles. I love those jigsaw puzzles, man. Those pieces look like they're about a 1/4 inch thick.
I know.
Why don't they make
jigsaw? They made great noise, right? It was super weird. Like I was shocked. The noises, like we talked about, the sound design in this film is just, again, it's weird how much attention was paid to detail, because it feels like it's not that it doesn't exist anymore, but now directors like stroke themselves to how much effort they've put into their movies, and it's like, yeah, of course, people have been doing it for years. Congratulations, you care. Like, you should
124 tracks or whatever. Who knows how many tracks did they have for sound on this thing? I believe I read that it was one of the aspects of the film that he was most particular with. Like, that was the stuff. The sound was the stuff that had to be done and redone. I think the editing went smoothly, and a lot of the optical stuff and special effects and things like that, didn't have an issue, but it was for some reason the sound that kept getting, that's not right, do it again, do it again, things like that. But again, for an 80-year-old movie, you don't know how much you're getting from the sound because it's done so well, if that makes sense. And the cockatoo scaring you half to death.
Holy shit.
And I don't know. I've heard that was to wake people up. I don't know if I buy that because there's 10 minutes left in the movie. If you're going to wake people up, do it, when there's a half an hour left or when there's 40 minutes left or something. But, oh man, I don't think I ever knew about that until maybe a year or two ago, that there was a jump scare cockatoo in Citizen Kane. And I thought that can't be right. So what's the theory?
Yeah, there's the waking people up theory. For me, it's the emotional intensity of the scene. It's very upsetting what comes after with her leaving him. And then you can also read into it as far as like this bird has flown kind of thing, and her being, caged and finally freeing herself. But that's reading a lot into it.
Yeah, it scared the shit out of me, though. I mean, again, here's the thing. I didn't know about it at all. So when it happened, I was like, well, what? Yeah. I mean, it genuinely comes out of nowhere. For the first time in a film, in a long time, I can say that I was jolted out of my seat, which is not a common, even in most horror movies, the jump scare, they build to it. They give you the music cues that something is happening, or the scene will kind of give you the cues. Nope, none of it, none of it. Which I appreciate because, again, does it work? I don't know, but it doesn't not work. It doesn't make me say fuck this movie. It's just because some people, sometimes this might just be like, oh my god, what are they doing? But here, like you said, Mike, any interpretation is a fair one. And any interpretation, as far as I'm concerned, holds water because I'm not sure which interpretation I would go with because they all kind of seem right.
Well, and it's contextual too because he does have wild animals on the property. So, a cockatoo could very well be there.
To me, it also harkens back to the camping that they're doing. In fact, when I was rewatching it today, I was like, is that cockatoo around this part? Is it after he slaps her? No, it's later on, but it almost is a continuation of that scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It essentially picks up at the end of the scene where she's already left, and it's kind of the finale of that scene. I think for me, probably the scene where Susan Alexander, the character, confronts Orson Welles. I think that's my favorite scene in the movie because, again, it's just the emotional intensity between those two actors on screen is believable, and their relationship is a horrifying one in many respects because, again, you hear the things that she says where it's like, no, I didn't want to sing. I didn't want to be an opera singer. This was for you. You wanted this for me because you thought that by me doing this for you, it proves that I love you. You want me to love you, and that's all you want. You don't care if you love me. And that ties back into a scene very early with Thatcher, the gentleman who comes to take Kane away from his family, and it's the scene where Orson Welles is no makeup. It's just Orson Welles as Orson Welles, and not Orson, but without makeup or anything. And he goes I would have been everything that you hate if you had never taken me away from my family. I would be everything that you hate, which is, I interpret that line as I would be a stand-up human being who's not a fucking monster. And I don't know if that's the interpretation that they were going for, but that's kind of what it strikes me as once the film wraps up. But again, so much of this film can be just picked apart. Singular lines, the usage of a cockatoo alone can be picked apart. That to me, this film, I forget who said it, but someone said that this film is to the film medium as James Joyce's, oh god damn
Ulysses?
It. Ulysses is to literature. It kind of is. It is kind of this. It's kind of less of a story.
It's a lot easier to digest, though.
Well,
I haven't tried it yet.
Fuck Ulysses, man.
Ulysses and the Silmarillion are two things that I would love to read at some point, but will probably die never actually getting the chance to read.
That's something you can skip. Citizen Kane, I say, people, if they haven't watched it like us two knuckleheads, they should probably do it. Fuck Ulysses.
Well,
Read Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, and you'll be fine.
But again, it's more of a bunch of disparate ideas, like you've said, Mike, strung together. 9 times out of 10, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But when it does work, you have Citizen Kane.
The one thing that we haven't mentioned is the music. And was Bernard Herrmann's first theatrical score. Like, he had worked with Wells on the radio, again, another radio refugee. And then he comes to Hollywood. This is his first score. I think he does Daniel and The Devil and Daniel Webster next. Then he does Ambersons, and then he's pretty much a free agent. And then he ends up working with Hitchcock for all of those years, works with De Palma, works with Scorsese. I mean, yeah,
Rod Serling
had a huge career for so many years afterwards. But the music in this, you get that great, very ominous music at the very beginning. And then again, he does the music for News on the March. So it's got that thing going on. He's got that amazing song that Mr. Bernstein and the chorus girls all sing, so many good.
And the opera, I believe. I think he does the music for the opera, if I read that correctly. Yeah, when I actually forgot. I knew he did the score. I forgot about it. And then when the movie opened on the I want to say castle, but on Xanadu, and there's that low, I don't know what instrument it is. It's a horn of some sort. And I was like, oh, fuck, that's Taxi Driver music. And I was like, oh, yeah, he did the music for this. And so that's a motif that shows up throughout his career.
You almost expect like those snare drums coming with it, building into it.
Thank God there's no saxophone, though.
Someday a real rain's going to come and put us in a war with Mexico or Cuba.
I love that. Yeah, you know what? That's another thing. Like I mentioned very early on, some of the where they're talking about things that aren't really shown on screen, that don't show the what you're not supposed to do in the movie. They keep mentioning the Spanish-American War, and I kept reading how he was responsible for the Spanish-American War, and I couldn't connect the two in my head.
Hearst, that is.
Well,
in the movie they claim it's
how did he sway? I don't. They say it, but I don't see it. I don't understand what he did to quote unquote, get us involved in the war.
Right.
Is it just by swaying opinion through the newspapers?
Yeah, the prose poems and the pictures and all those things. I mean, mixing fiction and reality, talking about both Hearst and Kane at the same time. There is a feeling in the States, in some people's minds, that we should be going to war with them. And some people say that the whole Maine being bombed, that might not have been the Spanish, that might have been something, like what would Alex Jones call it, a false flag operation? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, that was screamed across the front of Hearst papers. Remember the Maine. It was just like such a rallying cry for us to get involved in that war. And it was, he just, a lot of it was, I want to sell papers. And a lot of it was, I want to be a kingmaker, and I want to, play politics.
And then, you have other people at the time buying into it, like Rudyard Kipling with The White Man's Burden, which if you've never read that, boy, is that a horrifying thing to read now, then, and forever. But yeah, I think my favorite aspect of the Kane character is his unbridled hubris. And his belief, I mean, look, I don't think anyone's going to disagree that you should believe in yourself. You should have, self-confidence. You should feel that you have self-worth. But what Citizen Kane talks about is that becoming all it is.
Oh, yeah.
And it replaces it replaces everything in his life. He replaces everything in his life essentially with himself. He is the most important part of his own life. He is the most important person that he needs to please. And I love the quote about the monkeys, the monkey island, where, I'll just go to the monkey island and you'll be the king of the monkeys. And it's like, well, yeah, but the monkeys will probably still find some reason to say I'm not doing a good job. It's like, yeah, because you aren't. So, yeah. That's the thing about Citizen Kane that I really appreciate, is he's a bastard to the end. And the idea that there is nothing redeemable. I mean, he's a redeemable character in a sense, But ultimately, the film says, like, he's not redeemable. And he dies an unredeemed human being. And that's fine. Not everybody needs to be redeemed. Especially someone kind of as, not terrible. I mean, again, I think, you could talk about the character analysis of him as a child and then getting, God knows what happened to him with Thatcher. We need the prequel film to find out. I mean, come on. What happened in between? There was 20 years. I want to know. I love that character analysis because, again, similar to the things we talked about earlier this year, Mike, with the pre-code films, he doesn't get a happy ending.
Right.
And he doesn't deserve a happy ending.
Exactly.
And that's the important thing about this movie for me, is sometimes you don't deserve a happy ending, and it's no one's fault but your own.
He doesn't get 4 ghosts that visit him during the night and try to put him on the right path.
Nope, and he doesn't deserve them. And that's kind of what those characters that they're interviewing they kind of act as that in a way, because you see Susan Alexander trying. She's trying. And so many other people try, and he just in one ear and out the other.
Pushes them all away.
Mm-hmm.
And do any of those people from his life end up with a happy ending?
No. None of them do.
I mean, Mr. Bernstein seems like he's just like, well, I'm the chairman of the board. I got nothing but time. It's just like, okay. Yeah, it doesn't seem, because he was so young and idealistic and just like, oh, Charlie Kane is just a fantastic person. But yeah, when the opera ends up being a flop, you see him trying to like spin it in the right way. And, that little cloister of reporters, and he's just like trying to get things right for Charlie. But yeah, eventually he's going to get pushed away as well.
Yeah, maybe not so harshly screwed over as everybody else in his life, and probably why he doesn't seem as antagonistic during their discussion, his discussion with the investigator. But I guess Jedediah doesn't seem too far off. He's a little bit... it seems like he's trying to be negative as he can, but it almost can't help but to still have an appreciation for his old friend. And I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but it seems like, again, I don't know what it is about it. Everything that I've read would lead me to believe that I would hate this character all the way through the movie, and I just didn't find myself hating him.
No, you want to like him.
I know he does awful things, and most of these people that they're talking to at the end aren't saying great, wonderful things about him as a person. And I just find it odd that I still come out not necessarily feeling sorry for him at the end, but never really feeling all that much animosity toward the character of Charles Foster Kane. And I found that weird.
Bastards have friends. Bastards have people who go to bat for them, right? I mean, Mike White, ladies and gentlemen. We all go to bat for him. But I mean, to your point, Mark, like you said, in most films, when this character is presented, and again, Mankiewicz and Wells, utmost credit, they give you every reason to hate him, but because of their kind of quality writing and their quality script, you can't. Because you do get to see the scenes of him as a child and realize that it is not just his nature, it is also the nurture. And that's as an important an aspect of this kind of the creation of Charles Foster Kane, the nature and the nurture part of it, it's just as important. And it's important that, look, I mean, he was an idealistic child and he was an idealistic adult. The problem is his idealism became unchecked and became so kind of just, his hubris became so rampant that even, sure, he wrote a negative review about his own, at the time, wife's opera. But then he went on to just try to, puff up everything else. And it doesn't matter. It's like, you're trying to, Joseph Cotton says he was trying to prove to me that he wasn't a bastard. But he still was. Like, he can't get out of his own way. I mean, he would have been governor and he probably would have been president if not for himself. If not for who he was. And that, I think, again, not just Mankiewicz and Orson Welles, just utmost credit, because that little bit of uncertainty with the character and that little bit of gray in there, again, feels like contemporary screenwriting, which it is. And it also shows, their ability to craft genuinely interesting characters without taking it to the point of just like absolutely wanting to walk away. And like you said, Mark, feeling like I have no interest in wanting to watch any more of this character.
Yeah. And you get those little scenes like the first meeting with Susan Alexander and how charming he is in that. And really, it feels genuine to me. It doesn't feel like he's got an angle just yet. And maybe that's just me being idealistic too. But it's a nice scene. And, of course, that changes I love the picnic. And it took me, I think, not until today to realize that when he slaps her at the end of the movie there, I thought she said, "Tell me you're sorry." And then I just realized today that she says, "Don't tell me you're sorry." And I was like, oh, that's totally different. This scene just took on a totally different feeling for me. And I was like, oh, that's great. And then, of course, he does. So, but there are those bits and pieces where he is genuinely charming. The dance hall scene, or with the dancing girls. Sometimes when you've got a really charismatic character, it doesn't matter how nice they are in some scenes, because I know in the back of my mind this guy's a turd. But I don't know. I don't know if it's just Orson Welles, the writing, how it's presented, but I was rooting for him, even though I knew what was going to happen at the end. I don't know why.
And you know what we haven't talked about, and I do want to mention it, the design of Xanadu is amazing. I mean, again, the production design in this film is great, obviously. I mean, everything else, being great. It would be surprising if it also wasn't great, but that first shot that you see of Xanadu off in the distance, it kind of just sets the tone of where the film is going to go, because it's kind of this mysterious dark opening, and then you cut right into him dropping the snow globe, and you kind of understand immediately you don't even have to know who he is to understand this character, where he is, what he's doing, what the expectations are going to be, given that this man literally lives in an unfinished castle.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody on this call has been to San Simeon. I was there when I was 5, and I just found it to be absolutely ridiculous with how resplendent everything was. The statuaries, the pool, I mean, everything was just to get up to the castle itself, to San Simeon. It was like all of these switchbacks, and you're just in this bus for like an hour before you could even get to the proper castle.
Yeah, I went, I think the summer after my 7th grade. I had a friend that moved from Fresno to San Luis Obispo, which is really close to San Simeon. And so we went, and I was 12 or 13 and couldn't have been less impressed by the whole thing. I mean,
yeah. At 5 years old, I was just like, I'm tired. I am so tired right now. Can we please just like go back to the bus?
And it was kind of dumpy when I went, which would have been a little bit after you were there, since I'm not that much older than you. But I was like, okay, statues, a big giant pool. None of this architecture is interesting to me. None of the statues are interesting to me. I don't think there were animals on it at that time. I don't recall, but we went a couple of years ago just on the grounds, and there's like shops and a cafe and restaurants and stuff way down below, and you can look up, and that's where people kind of take the bus up. We didn't do any of that, but I looked through the viewfinder thing to look up at it and was like, yeah, that's enough. I don't need to go see this again. It's I don't know. It's not that interesting for whatever reason, but I guess a lot of that was stuff that they filmed in San Diego. And I think I've been to Balboa Park. I know I've been to the San Diego Zoo, but a lot of the exteriors for that were cobbled together from areas down in that area. And then I think shots of one of his either in Spain or France or something. So they kind of cobbled all that together. And then you've got other stock footage, again, to kind of make this illusion work.
Right.
Which makes me think about the stock footage scene in that picnic scene again, where you've got the birds in the background. They're actually pterodactyls.
Yeah.
Because it was taken from some old, I can't remember which movie it was taken from, but I finally caught it again. I miss all this stuff unless I read about it first, which is why I don't mind reading about movies, Chris, which we've talked about. Like, I wouldn't have realized that those were pterodactyl shadows in the background. I wouldn't realize that they swung the table in, after the camera moved past, or that the sign was splitting in two. So, Yeah, it's like that low budget kind of Roger Corman attitude, but he had some money and a whole lot of talent, which you can't always say about some of the Roger Corman films.
Drive can fill in for a lot of failings if you really are driven to make something as kind of legendary as this film ended up being. I mean, again, from the fact that this is the first time so many of these actors are on film to, Bernard Herrmann, this is one of the, if not the first time, I think you mentioned it, Mike, the first time he's working. So much of this, just 9 times out of 10, nothing comes of it. It just ends up being a movie that everybody forgets about. And you know what's weird, and this is kind of where I think we should end this podcast. If Citizen Kane, this is a thought experiment here, is there a universe where Citizen Kane doesn't get the praise that it deserves and it's still just a movie that, not that nobody talks about, because I think still film critics and people who are teaching film school and trying to impart to the new and upcoming generation of filmmakers important ideas and breaking the mold of filmmaking. Is there a universe where this movie is just a movie? I mean, is that a thing that could have happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was a very real possibility for a long time, was that this movie was just not appreciated. So I could see it being one of those where people are just like, wow, have you seen that? That was really good. But nowhere near like, oh, you're in film school? Okay, get ready to watch this 6 times this semester.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a movie like a lost movie or, something that disappeared for a long time and was rediscovered. And I can't think of one, of course, as usual. But I don't know. I mean, there's so much going on just in the technical aspects of it. I think it would get rediscovered at some point, whether it had been lost, whether it hadn't been kind of rediscovered in 56 or whenever the Sight and Sound best of finally came out sometime in the 60s, I think. If none of those things had happened, I don't know. I kind of feel like at some point, at least the technical aspects of the film would have been lauded by a lot of people. I don't know.
And it's really funny if you think about it, Mike. You were talking about the Kane from Citizen Kane at the beginning of the episode. It has a pop culture relevancy still.
Oh yeah.
Which, how many movies from 41 have cultural relevancy?
Well, 1941 is a very big year in film. So. Yeah. We were talking about Wild at Heart earlier, too, and that is steeped in Wizard of Oz, and I want to say that came out the same year. Or was that 39?
39.
39
Another big year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not like the knucklehead on Twitter that said he doesn't watch movies maybe before 1975. But for a lot of years, I kind of was. They weren't my go-to. Other than Alfred Hitchcock, I didn't watch a lot of older movies up until probably my late 20s. But I would say if you're a dummy like me and hadn't watched this yet, watch it before the end of your life.
I would actually go as far as to say friend of the podcast, frequent guest co-host Cullen Gallagher would advocate for watching it once every couple years.
Oh yeah.
Because, and I have not seen it more than once, but I can tell you I already agree, because I know that 5 years from now, I may be getting something vastly different from this than I did today.
Oh, yeah.
And 10 years from now, 20 years. So, even more contemporary films, a film that I like to use as an example, and it's a film that I detested the first time I saw it, was The World's End. The Simon Pegg, Edgar Wright final Cornetto trilogy film.
Ooh, I hated that one. Do you think I should rewatch it?
Have you seen it recently?
No, I just saw it the one time and I fucking hated it.
It's amazing.
Really?
It's amazing for the reason that I feel like Cullen mentioned Citizen Kane being rewatched, which is it is a film about people getting old and being unable to let go. Some people being able to let go of things, and other people having to deal with that in their lives and kind of work around that. And the idea of getting older, and I saw it when I was 18.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster. You know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week, and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
19. As a 30-year-old adult now, 10, 11 years to some might not seem like a long time, but I think we all know, 1 year can make a huge difference, let alone 5 or 10. But yes, I would advocate for you watching it, Mike, if you still don't like it.
I hated Simon Pegg's character so much, and he never gets his comeuppance. And then that end scene when he's still out there being a jackass, I was like, he never learned his lesson. This guy never got his comeuppance. I'm a big believer in comeuppance.
Some people never do.
That's why I thought I was going to hate Kane. But
yes, some people
I would
never
suggest. I watched it 3 times, so I'm good for the next 3 years. But
yeah, right.
No, I know that I'll get more out of it on repeated viewings because, like I said, I still am like missing things. I know that there are lines of dialogue that haven't connected yet, and little details in the corner of a shot and all that will pop up on repeated viewings. So yeah, I don't feel bad that I waited so long. I feel that this was meant to be for some reason, but
kind of feels like it in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't be a dunce. Check it out.
I did really want to quickly. I looked up 1941, and 1941 is a really shitty Spielberg movie, but
don't let Father Malone hear that one.
I love 1941.
Oh, fucking come on! Hold on. Do you like Transylvania 6-5000?
I didn't watch it yet. I saw 1941 in the theater. I was way into Saturday Night Live.
Yep, I was
actors.
very into Belushi. He's so little in that movie.
I laughed. I loved it. Never knew that it had bombed. I don't even think I knew it was by Steven Spielberg. I had no concept of any of that. I didn't get the Jaws reference at the beginning. I got it that it was Jaws. I didn't get it that was the same director.
Yep.
Laughed. Rented it.
That's unusual.
Now and again when I was a kid growing up, and I watched it, I think, a few years ago. It's not as great as I remembered, but I still have a very sentimental attachment to that film. Well, so anyway, sorry.
What I was going to say, no problem.
Sentimentality aside.
What I was going to say was that's also the year of The Maltese Falcon, Dumbo, The Lady Eve, Suspicion, let's see, Wolfman, Ball of Fire, Sullivan's Travels, Meet John Doe, High Sierra, Blood and Sand, Here Comes Mr. Jordan, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the Hitchcock film, as opposed to the Doug Liman film. It was a really good year as well. And, there were some films that we still refer to from 41. So just wanted to put that out there.
So I'm wrong, and I will admit that I was wrong.
I wasn't trying to call you out.
No. But to your point, there are more than one film from 41 that we do talk about.
Oh yeah, it looks like
Maltese Falcon.
It was one hell of a year. A lot of stuff that it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Oh yeah, that too.
Wait, Mike, do you think I'm too big of a man to admit on my own podcast I'm wrong, and I'll leave it in the cut, and I'll leave it in here? I'm not gonna cut it out. I'm no Citizen Kane, sir.
Where's your declaration of principles?
Yeah, where is it?
I have a question. Another what if, or not what if, but not your favorite, but what would be your top greatest of all time film? Because I know that it has lost its place, I think, maybe not in the AFI list, but and I'm not talking about Rotten Tomatoes, it may have been the AFI list. I feel like Vertigo was number one for a while.
Yeah, they were neck and neck going back and forth.
So what would be your top picks?
Oof. How long you got? I think Chris is trying to wrap up this podcast.
But I mean, like a number one. What would be?
You mean other than Black Shampoo?
Yeah.
Mike,
sentimentality aside, and I love Eraserhead, but I'm not going to say it's the most well-made movie.
You mean something that I was just genuinely floored by the first time or every time I watch it?
Technically, it hits on all marks: acting, cinematography, directing.
Maybe The Godfather?
I believe that Godfather 2 is up on the very top of the list as well.
I like Godfather 1 a lot
Me
better than
too.
Godfather
Yeah, I do
2.
too. I do too.
It has more Abe Vigoda in it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I used to think that I liked Godfather 2 equally, and then I rewatched him, and I was just like, yeah, it doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't watch any of them all that often, but I was surprised again growing up and hearing that Godfather 2 is considered better, and one of the few sequels that's better than the original. I'm like, oh really? People consider that? Oh, okay.
What's funny is there are so many movies now that are better than their originals that it's funny that like that's not it. Like, it was that was a thing in Scream too, right? They even had that conversation in the film studies classroom because of course they did. For me, what my answer would be The Exorcist.
Ooh, wow.
I love The Exorcist. I don't know what it is. There's something about The Exorcist. I revisit it every year, and every year I get something different out of it. And I think it's probably because of my own personal struggles with spirituality and religion and where those two intersect and diverge, because I'm a very spiritual person, but I completely detest organized religion. But at the same time, as someone who is spiritual, that almost means that I kind of am buying into the religion a little bit. I have to, in some respects, at least certain aspects of it, be it Western religions or Eastern religions, however you want to look at it. But for me, it's Exorcist because it asks, similarly to Citizen Kane, I would say similarly to Godfather, maybe not so much, but Exorcist asks questions of the audience that doesn't give the audience answers. It wants you to synthesize your own answers and come to your own conclusion. I mean, again, Citizen Kane, we all probably got something similar from it, but probably vastly different in many ways. And for me, Exorcist is right up there. And Mark, you're probably going to hate me for this, and I'm going to say it, and I continue to say it, and I will never stop saying it. Calling The Exorcist a horror movie discounts how good it is, because you put it into a box that it doesn't deserve to be in, not because I think the horror genre doesn't deserve to be put on a pedestal, because I think every genre does. I think all films have worth. But it's because if you call it a horror movie, you automatically take out people that are going to watch it that need to watch it. The people who need to watch films like Citizen Kane, The Exorcist, they're the people who need to see them the most, because they may not be asking themselves those questions in their normal life, but if they watch a film that asks them those questions, they might be more willing to engage and actually think about them. And something like Citizen Kane, something like The Exorcist, they really force the audience to look at themselves in the mirror and ask yourself a question about yourself as opposed to telling you the answer. And The Exorcist is awesome.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorites.
Another technically impressive film.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mike White, what would you give Citizen Kane out of 5?
Gotta do it, 5 out of 5.
Mr. Begley?
Probably 3.5. I gave.
You don't have to give it a 5. It's not a requirement.
And I didn't on my Letterboxd page. I gave it a 4.5 stars because I did find myself dozing off a couple of times. So no, I did give it a 4.5, and that's just to be contrary.
Okay.
Because it's my Letterboxd page, and you know.
I mean, to be fair, giving this movie a 5 does kind of feel like punching the clown in the nose, right? Like yeah, we all know it's a great movie.
It's an amazing movie. I'm trying to see what the last movie I gave a 4.5 was.
This,
just to compare. Oh, Cockfighter. So there you go. They rate the same in my book.
Cockfighter is a pretty great movie. I'm glad to hear that you liked it.
Yeah, I did. I really liked it.
I would give Citizen Kane a 5. And again, take that ironically or unironically or because I couldn't give it anything else. No, I chose to give it a 5, just like Mike did. I mean, I didn't have to like this movie. Mark, you didn't have to like this movie. We're not obligated to like this movie because someone told us to. It is genuinely a film I do agree, everybody should watch this movie because you'll get to see where film was and understand that where film is now is in part credited to Citizen Kane.
Yeah, in large part, I think.
In large part, yep. I would agree. Where can people find you, Mr. Mike White? What's going on at the Projection Booth Podcast?
Well, you can always find me at projectionboothpodcast.com. And, well, let's see. We're doing some Patreon requests, so including one that you're on, sir, which is Gone in 60 Seconds. So you get to hear all about Memphis Reigns and Mandrian Pace. So some great names.
And the fact that on that episode we didn't debate which one was a dumber name is astounding to me.
Yeah.
Lord.
Basically, we just kept calling him Nick Cage the whole time.
Nick Cage and H.B. Halicki.
Right.
We refuse to call them by their character name.
Well, it is tough saying Mandrian or, you know.
I thought it was Main Drain.
Main Drain. It could be.
Main Drain. Oh boy. But yeah, you should definitely check out that episode. I knew you were doing Patreon exclusives or Patreon request month. I'm glad that you didn't get saddled with garbage. Or maybe you did. I don't know. I've only been on one episode. So.
Yeah. Well, there's two others that I'm going to be watching. So Kulishe of My Car and Eternity in a Day. So I've tried watching the first one and I started to get a headache behind my eye. So hopefully I'll be able to watch it in totality, all 2.5, 3 hours of it or whatever. So these are some longer films that I'll be talking about. Not as long as Indian cinema, but some longer films. So yeah, see how it goes.
What about you, Mr. Begley? What's going on at the Wake Up Heavy podcast?
What is going on? I watched another Godzilla movie with my daughter, so we'll probably have a quick little episode out sometime in the next week or so. You and I and Jess will be talking about Poltergeist, but that's not for another month. The episode with Mike White and Sam Deegan and I talking about looking for Mr. Goodbar is up on the site, and you can check that out and everything else at wakeupheavy.com or soundcloud.com/wakeupheavy, etc. All those podcast sites that you folks use. The show should be there.
And as for me, my hope is that my podcast is also on all RSS feeds. But hey, maybe I said something and I've been taken down. I don't think so, but who knows? We'll give it some time. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Christmas Claus, and you can find this podcast on the internet at Kulturecast.com. And you can also find it at Patreon.com/Kulturecast, where $1 gets you access to some bonus episodes. Mike and I did one last month. Mark and I did one this month. And we're going to be doing more. We're going to be bringing more Patreon content. So if you're in for that, awesome. Thank you. Welcome. If not, hey, I get it. Times are hard, man. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. Shocking, I know. As for y'all, thank you so much for joining me. Mark, it was a late edition, but I'm glad you joined us. Mike.
Thanks
Mike,
for letting me weasel my way in.
Oh, there's no weaseling here. If you had never seen it, it's as important a reason to join us as any, because I'm glad that it wasn't just me having never seen it. But thank you both for joining me. Mike, it felt important to be able to have you on this podcast, given our kind of film history together and the, I guess how important you have been to my kind of film career. So I'm glad that you have been here. And Mark, I'm glad that I could share this experience with another knucklehead who had never seen it.
For really stupid reasons on my part.
Yeah, exactly. And make sure to check out the next episode of the Kulturecast.